The first episode of the Book of Boba Fett has finally arrived and showcased one of the most iconic bounty hunters in the galaxy returning to his former glory after his rebirth and resurgence in The Mandalorian Season 2. After a multi-decade hiatus, fans were able to see the iconic character for the first time in 40 years after his supposed demise. His demise at the hands of Luke Skywalker and Han Solo in Return of the Jedi. The King is here. So stick with us, weary travelers of the galaxy, and let's break down the key events of this first episode of the Book of Boba Fett, analyze what we saw, and what we might expect to see in the coming weeks as the series further develops. Spoilers ahead for Episode 1 for the Book of Boba Fett. The episode largely served to tell two premiere stories at once, filling in both the past and the present of Boba's story simultaneously. The first story is one we've been waiting decades to see, how Boba Fett survived his encounter with the Sarlacc pit, and the means by which he took to survive some of the harshest conditions that Tatooine confronted him with. While the second storyline was how he is beginning his ascension, and the steps he's currently taking to set up his reign apart from his predecessor Jabba the Hutt and Bib Fortuna. So let's break down both sides of these stories, starting with the events immediately following Return of the Jedi. We first learn of Boba's escape from the Sarlacc pit, where he was last seen all the way back in 1983. Finding out that he used a combination of his flamethrower, the remains of a discarded stormtrooper armor, and his digging prowess to slowly climb his way back to the surface, where he was subsequently robbed by Jawas. This directly leads into the state in which we find him at the beginning of The Mandalorian Season 2, as he has been stripped of his armor and equipment. In this moment largely serves as the backstory that fills in these gaps of his history. Boba would then spend the subsequent remainder of his backstory being held captive and being passed around between different parties, ultimately ending up in the grip of Tusken Raiders. Throughout his time of enslavement and captivity, we get to see his combat prowess as he holds his own against not only the Tuskens, but a few of the vicious creatures that both they, as well as the environment of Tatooine, throw at him. Boba supposedly befriends a fellow prisoner, only to find out that this newfound friend would end up selling him out during his first attempted escape, sending the Tusken guards chasing him into the desert, where he'd engage in single combat with one of their most capable fighters. After being unwittingly pulled back into the clutches of the Tuskens and captured once again, he is tasked with digging for water pods, only to have them immediately confiscated by the Tusken child who was overseeing his enslavement. This giving us a key look at how the Tusken Raiders survive, as well as the people of Tatooine on such a harsh desert world. Finally, after multiple days of being in custody of the Sand People and multiple failed escape attempts, Boba seizes his final opportunity not to escape, but to garner the respect of his captors. While digging for water, a sand creature that closely resembles an Irukine emerges and attacks the group. Though the creature shares many common characteristics with the Irukine, the subtitle simply refers to it as a sand creature, and it cannot have yet be confirmed as an Irukine. This is simply the creature we believe looks most like it. During this scene, the fullest extent of Boba's combat prowess and resourceful nature is on display, as he uses his cunning tactical skills to kill the beast, despite having every disadvantage in his conflict. Upon bringing the severed head of the sand creature to the village, Boba is regarded with respect from the Tuskens, and is highly likely that this will play a significant role in his rise to power later in the season, though this again cannot be confirmed as of yet and remains to be seen. But while the story of Boba Fett's past has been filled in, and we learn that Boba is forming a similar relationship to the Tuskens as Din Djarin did, what do we know about his present, and where we can see his story going in the future of the series, and the Star Wars saga as a whole? During the modern half of the show, we are able to see how Boba is cutting ties with the previously established traditions of ruling. In the trailers, he claimed that while Jabba ruled with fear, he intended to rule with respect, and not only does he reflect this sentiment in the first episode, but we got to see what this looks like in practice. Boba seems to take a far more merciful approach to his dealings as the new crime lord of Tatooine, in a way that Jabba never did, with Fennec Shand, his trusted advisor, even warning against deviating from these practices, as respecting them would most certainly aid in his rise to power. Yet, he adamantly refuses to do so and follow in the footsteps of Jabba. The first challenge he faces is the issue of disrespect. As the mayor sends a proxy to pay his respects, rather than offering tribute, he elects to try his hand at bribery instead, and demands payment from Boba Fett rather than the other way around. While Jabba would have taken this as a profound insult, garnering execution, as Fennec Shand again mentions, Boba elects to take a more peaceful approach, and instead lets him live, considering this to be his gift. Boba is then confronted with Gamorrean defectors, and Fennec yet again proposes the idea of execution or torture, to which Boba responds that he does not torture people, yet again solidifying his distinction from Jabba and the crime lords of old. Instead, he elects to recruit them back into the fold and continue to build his forces from the remains of Jabba's empire. The next deviation that we see from standard practices is in the form of ceremonial litter, otherwise known as the practice of crime lords being carried by their underlings, as Jabba spent his days being paraded around town and carried by his servants. This litter became synonymous with the reign of crime lord's lineage and a show of power within the town on Tatooine. By deviating from this, Boba not only sends the message that he is capable of handling himself, and as he says, standing on his own 2 feet, but he further weakens his presence in the eyes of the populace of Mos Espa, clear consequences that will follow later on in the series. In doing so, Boba weakens his show of power and relies firmly on the faith of others and the potential of his own actions to garner respect rather than using fear, which is shaping up to be a tedious uphill battle for the crime lord. The show is doing a great deal of adding to the newly complex layer of Boba Fett, who was previously seen as a faceless bounty hunter who served blindly at the behest of Darth Vader and the Empire. Now, giving the character far more agency and control of his own, as well as his story, and evolving him into a much more compelling and complex character. After spending some time in the town, he is ambushed by what would be assassins, able to fight them off with the aid of his Gamorrean guards and Fennec Shand, who chases down 2 of the attackers. While Fennec is ultimately successful in capturing one of them, details surrounding his identity or allegiances have yet to be seen, most likely being revealed in the next episode. We also see that Boba Fett has developed a particular attachment to his Bactapod, which helps to heal and rejuvenate him after putting his body through immense physical strain, not to mention the Sarlacc pit, which will most likely continue to play an integral role in his maintenance of his physical health throughout the series. As of now, it seems that the most significant challenge to his rise to power is public perception and the idea of maintaining his principles, though this episode showed that he most certainly has external enemies who would seek to take him down, and only time will tell who exactly these outsiders are. But anyway, my friends, what did you think about the first episode? Did you enjoy seeing Boba Fett back in action, and what would you like to see from the series going forward? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.